Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Ayub. I'm the founder of the Localization Fireside Chat podcast channel. This relatively new platform has given me and given my audience an incredible opportunity, really, to listen to thought leaders bring new ideas to the industry and industry professionals to tell their intriguing stories, intriguing localization stories, and discuss trends, challenges, innovations in our industry. So, if you have not done so already, I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn or connect and engage with our content throughout our channels, YouTube podcast channels, your favorite podcast channels, streaming channels. Feel free to connect with our content. Feel free to engage with us. And if you have any ideas for future podcasts, we welcome those as well. Today, I'm honored and I have the pleasure and distinct pleasure to be joined with Oz Krakowski from Deepdub. A company, which I can't wait to hear about this. I've heard a lot about your company, Oz, and can't wait to get to know you a little better, get to know the company a little better. And the audience really is starving, I feel. I feel like there's a big appetite out there for brand new ideas when it comes to localization. And the fundamental thing about localization is that connection between the content and the consumer of that content, regardless of what content we're talking about or the demographics we're talking about. And localization in general, and I from the little I've read about Deepdub.ai, I feel like you guys fulfill that, meaning that you bring content to demographics who have no access to those contents otherwise. So welcome to the show, welcome to the channel, Oz. Good to have you with me. And if you don't mind, just because we get started, I always say on this channel, everybody's got a story. So I would love to ask, how did you, I've read your bio, you have a lot of tech background, you've done quite a number of things in your career. How did you find your way to localization? What presented itself as an opportunity? I'd love to hear your story. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this podcast. The honor is really, mine to be here and be part of, your distinct guests on this channel. Specifically to a question, it's a very interesting question, and life brought me into this from, I guess, a rather, I would say, unusual path, or at least if I compare myself to others in the industry. I'm not in the industry for the past 4 decades or 3 decades or so. I really come from a tech background, but I was, I would say, kind of dragged into this, which I love the concept that that I was dragged, because I love where I'm at, and I love this industry and what we do here, and which we'll talk about. But the story, I will say, the background story is, I like you say, I come from a tech background, from a tech savvy family, I would say. You can imagine our Friday evening family dinner, look back 20 years ago, we're all about technology. I have 2 brothers that are, we're all, the discussion was on computers, on the internet, on, as technology evolved with the years, we kept on, we kept with the latest and greatest, always arguing, iPhone versus Android, the classic type of arguments. We still go on this one, by the way. But essentially, at some point, we grew up in a house that fosters entrepreneurships and foster innovation. And I would say about 10 or 12 years ago, I quit a very prominent job at corporate America, at the technology sector. And I basically went on a path of, founding my own startup company in a totally different world, in the healthcare market. And my startup was really trying to help people. I really wanted to connect with the audience. I wanted to, with my target customers, I wanted to have an impact on people's lives in a meaningful way. And that's why, I chose to go with the healthcare market. Unfortunately, that startup was very exciting, ahead of its time, but COVID like many other companies, COVID basically killed the idea, unfortunately. But while I was, closing my startup, my two brothers started their own startup. And they came with, they were I would say in Israel for a while in the public sector. They came from military background, technology wise, but when they freed up their time, they decided to start a company that is focusing, again, how do we create some impact on people's lives, but using advanced AI, generative AI technologies. And they came up with the idea of Deepdub. I was involved in, a little bit in the background, but I was still, in the process of shutting down my startup while Deepdub was starting at the end of 2019. And as soon as my startup, basically, I would say, was gone, and my time was free, I joined and, immediately, took a part in this, what turns out to be almost a family business. And the beautiful part of it is that we all come from a slightly different background, which gives us the ability to really split responsibilities and address all the challenges in a very collaborative way and constructive way, which I think ends up in something that is the beautiful thing we call Deepdub.
Well, thanks for this story, Oz. I really appreciate the background that you just illustrated this just now. And I guess my comment on this one is, having been in the localization industry, and I come from the tech background as well. Like, this is what I used to do before localization. And just for anecdotally here, because we're having a conversation over virtual coffee, I got into the business as well by accident. I was on a flight coming back from Washington. My hometown was Moncton, New Brunswick, and somebody was sitting beside me, an old friend I haven't seen for a while, convinced me to join a company in an industry I didn't know existed, to be honest with you. And so there you go. Accidents do happen, and that was the best accidents ever happened in my life. I found, I always tell the story. Before the localization industry, I was changing jobs every 2-3 years, seeking the more exciting, the better pay, where I can use my intellectual, brain in a different way, using tech, etc. But with the localization industry, I found all this. The breadth of the localization industry and the amount of excitement that's involved, different topics. You're not stuck in one industry all the time. You're covering various industries. Today, you're working in entertainment. Tomorrow, you could be working in healthcare. The day after, you could be working in legal. So there's a lot of diversity in the localization industry. So that's why I got excited, and it kept me going in this industry for the past 21 years now. I can't believe I'm saying this.
Wow.
So just from your perspective, I guess the audience is very interested in finding out a little bit more about what does Deepdub does. Like, what is the services you offer, and what is it that you like the world to know about this? I don't know, how old is your company, by the way? If you can give us a little brief on that one, that'd be great.
Perfect, absolutely. I'll try to make it very brief, and I'm sure we'll delve more into it as we go. But essentially, Deepdub was established at the end of 2019, so it's a very young company in the world of localization if we compare to traditional companies. And we really set a goal to bridge the language barrier, cultural gaps of entertainment experiences, but through the use of advanced generative AI technologies to enable things that are still, I would say, to some extent, pain points in the industry. That will be, increased capacity, address markets that are less served, either because of cost prohibitive, because they are cost prohibitive, or because there is just no infrastructure, or less interest, because there's no big streaming service over there that will enable that, and essentially, democratize content. One of the key things that we like to, that we don't realize, and I just spoke about it, on a panel a week ago. language is a skill. In the end, we converse in English right now. We don't realize that it's a skill that we acquired, and that skill is enabling us, but also limiting us. It enables you and I to discuss, but it, by definition, takes away people that don't have that skill from accessing that content. Very specifically, your podcast is going to be available for English speakers. If people people in, let's say, Indonesia that don't speak English will find it way harder to understand what we talk about. Some of them may, some of them may not. Some of them will never even look at it because it's not in their language. The entire concept is not new in localization. This is a concept that is well known. This is the underlying, I would say, guide of the world of localization. The difference is that, for example, Indonesia is not a market that is being served much, for example, because it's not a major market. And the idea is, how can we enable people in Indonesia? I'm just using Indonesia as an example, but it could be just as much, Eastern Europe, other countries in Eastern Asia, or even with established markets with content that is much less in the in the prime focus. So this is basically, if I try to not to dig too much, but when we look at Deepdub, the idea was, let's use technology and the most advanced technology to really enable expansion, increased capacity, localization of additional content, even beyond entertainment, to really get that type of accessibility to content that was never before.
And so if you don't mind, maybe for our audience, so how does the service work for if let's say I'm a prospective customer? So what kind of customers you look for, and what services do you provide? And if you were to if there's a results after this podcast, hopefully we get you a few customers after this podcast. Let's say if somebody's interested, what is the criteria to become a customer or to be considered as a customer?
Another great question. I love the question. So I will say this, today, the criteria is actually very simple. If you have audiovisual content that is tied to language, meaning someone is talking, narration, people interview, or whatever, then you could be a customer. If you have a video that has no audio on it or has no dialogue, then you're not a customer. Obviously, you don't need our service for localization. But it sounds like a very low barrier, but I will say this. About a month ago, we launched a new platform that really opens up the door to pretty much everyone to localize content on their own. The platform is called Deepdub Go, and it really enables you and I in a few clicks of a button to localize content, short videos. Even it enables the creation side. So I'm not even talking about the technology, but just in terms of the business, the thing that really distinguishes Deepdub from other AI companies, and also we're kind of like in between the other AI companies and the traditional ones, because we managed to really we started by addressing the high quality content, the top tier, the Hollywood grade content. And the idea behind it was, if we are able to solve that challenge, then we will find a way to take that quality, that everything we learned, will take it to everyone basically. And this is where Deepdub Go is. How can we bring that grade of quality to broader audiences? But we also do either a managed service, like when we work with studios, when we work with customers that, especially from the entertainment side, it will be more of a managed service where we will do everything end to end. On the other end of the spectrum, for creators, influencers, ad agencies, anyone that has some content, they can literally use a SaaS platform, the Deepdub Go, on their own and do their own thing there.
So how many languages does the platform covers? And you mentioned Indonesia, so I'm assuming it covers Indonesia, but I'm assuming it covers others. So, having spoken to other companies in the same domain, when we're talking about dubbing, we're talking about, the audio piece that goes along, that's the piece that needs to be converted to another language. So I'm assuming there'd be like person profile attached to that. So a male versus female, age group, etc. So are all these variables in place now? Can you talk a little bit about the language coverage and perhaps the persona of the audios that you covers?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the question has multiple layers. So I'll start to unwrap. If I miss anything, we can keep digging in. But from a language perspective, overall, we support up to 65 languages today. When I say 65 languages, I cover all of the different capacities and workflows and variations that we have. Not every workflow supports every language. Not every type of quality or tier supports every language, because in the end, it also comes down to the essence of where we have the ability to support, let's say, high quality or lower quality, or lower tier. I would say not necessarily low quality, lower tier type of content, and we can talk about that as well. That's essentially what it is. When we look at supporting a language, it means that I should be able to at least have one male, one female voice, at least, which means that if I have one and one, that I, at the minimum, can do some basic voiceover solution. In some cases, we have much more. We have many voices. In some of the more, prominent languages or more on-demand languages, we have more voices per language. And even more than that, in some of them, we enabled a new feature that is available on the Deepdub Go platform, and that's called the emotional prompt, which gives you the ability to control the emotions of a text-to-speech. So this is, we didn't talk about technologies, we'll talk probably a bit later, but the text-to-speech, so you have text that is converted into voice, and through emotional prompts, you can choose whether the generated will be a reading style, sad, angry, shouting, amused, different types of emotional cues that you can give to that text, and the machine will, through the context of the text, will actually generate the dialogue that you can play with.
Oh, wow, this is great. I mean, I always thought technology deals with logic. Now you're controlling emotions in the way you portray the dubbing, which is absolutely phenomenal. And you know what? One of the things probably we should do, you and I, after this call, is take this video and convert it into several languages and, serve, you brought up a very good point. I mean, we're only speaking in English. Let's test, the idea of Deepdub services, and use this video that we're going to be producing here as an example of what you and the company can do in this case. And one of the things that we always talk about, especially like if you're running a podcast channel or you're doing anything that has to reach audience and media out there, is the amount of coverage. And the amount of coverage, you absolutely bring up a very good point. The English-speaking world is not the entire world. I 100% agree with you. There are many other languages that would be interested in some of the messages that we're conveying here. And you're right, there was a barrier to entry, and the barrier to entry was, I don't know if you follow the news with the YouTube personality, Mr. Beast, and that entire fiasco there. So we can debate that a little bit, but and he had enough. I wanted to start in my own company, and I want to do this thing on my own, and he did. Yeah. And that was the cause of the barrier to entry, I guess.
Right, for him, yes, exactly, and it's pretty high. I mean, he can afford it, but absolutely. And regarding just the first thing you said regarding taking this video and localizing it, I actually in a way, kind of have a surprise, you can say, because
Okay.
I already took one of your very early videos in your channel. I think the first one that you introduced the channel, and I localized a little bit of it by myself.
Oh wow, great! Well, thank you so much. Wow, that's the biggest surprise I got today. I mean, the biggest surprise I got on the channel so far. This is wonderful. Thank you.
One of the challenges, one of the challenges when localizing content in the past was, access to so many aspects of localization. The translation, the adaptation. How do I get everything together? The mix. I need to understand the language. I need to invest a lot of effort in things that are relatively, I would say, the basics of localization. What we do is we take the effort out of the mundane tasks and let you focus on the creative task. So where's the creative in, transcription is not creative. Transcription is I hear, I write it down. I hear, write it down. I don't need, I don't need anything for transcription, right? Translation in itself is more creative, especially when it comes to the adaptation. So what we do is, here's the translation, boom, you get it. You don't need to press a button. It comes automatically. But now you go and add the creative part, adjust the jokes, adjust the translation so it fits to the right timing, make sure that the places are correct, make sure that, this is where the creative part comes in. But the mundane task of just putting everything together is already there. And even even the emotions, this is a creative part. I know that, if it's a YouTuber that is standing far away, I don't want to hear them like this, speaking into the microphone. I want to hear them shouting from afar, right? So I'm going to give that level of emotion to the voice.
And this is where technology is in its, I think the improvement that we're making in technology is enabling, some of the creative, innovative ideas similar to Deepdub right now. And technology, I believe, still at its infancy. I mean, we still haven't scratched the surface. Everybody agrees that we have a brand new era in technology, and the accelerated development of those technologies is amazing, in my opinion, because the timeline used to be, for a year, 2 years, or 3 years, 5 year cycle for technology to be developed. Now we're talking about a few weeks, a quarter, maybe a month, depends on what you're into. So let's talk a little bit about, I have several questions for you. I can talk to you forever about this topic, but let's get started with a couple more questions. And by the way, before we, this discussion is about an hour. You're welcome back to the channel anytime. I call it here, mi casa es su casa. You come in, this channel is yours. If you have any update, if you have anything you want to reach out to audience, please feel free to come back. So the invitation is open.
Thank you.
So one of the things I always struggle with when talking to guests on this channel from the localization industry is that whole topic around, is it fully technology? Is it like the solution is full technology, or do we have a hybrid solution at this point? So meaning that is a human in the middle or not, or is it completely hands off? And this is where people, I agree with you that mundane tasks should not be part of the equation. Mundane tasks should be all automated. And trust me, I can tell you stories about that one. But the aspect of, are we taking the human completely out of the equation? Are we at a point right now we're saying it's fully automated, or you mentioned the creative part, but there must be somewhere around the engineering, the control, the process, making sure that every step is going correctly. What's your thoughts on that?
So one of the things that I've learned, I've heard this term in a conference about AI in marketing last week. Someone said that we need to differentiate between thinking to thinking, and where people will still do the thinking, and let's leave the thinking to machines or to the AI to help us and do the thinking a little bit more creatively, or more, I would say, more precisely, more accurately, more complete, I would say. But in the end, I don't think people are going out of the loop in the foreseeable future. The level of involvement of people within the process is going to change. Where in the process people are going to be involved is going to change based on the outcome that we'd like to achieve. I'll give you an example from how we operate. We have multiple ways of addressing a content. We can do it in a way that is that it requires minimal effort on the from a manual perspective, but the outcome will be also accordingly. So it really is good to certain types of content, but the more I'd like to put more focus on the creative sides of the work, the adaptation, the quality of the voice, how much exactly it fits within the time slots, the segments and everything, I'm going to be more involved in the output. Now, this is one way. We have another way of using different technologies that give you a much more accurate result, where I can really put a lot of focus on lip syncing. I can put a lot of focus on recreating the performance and the emotional and the expressivity of the content, but that requires even more manual work. So the more I'd like to put a lot of creativity back into the process, the more involvement I have in the process. And I think what we're going to see is that the balance between might change based on the output that we'd like to achieve, and as technology also progressing, but it's not going to go 100 to 0. It's never going to be 0%.
Well, this is, you talk about the transformation of the jobs and how people are involved. And, having been in the industry for so many years, I came to one conclusion: that people don't like change. And many of my colleagues will attest to that, specifically on the operational side of things, where we tend to have some sort of an idea that says, I create a situation, whatever that situation may be, or a setup or a process, and then if the process change, it causes a bunch of anxiety to a bunch of people. But what you bring up a very good point. As we go through a transformative stage in our business cycle as an industry, and we're not the only industry, we're not the first industry that's going through those transformations. Printing industry before us, telecom industries, technology has changed. But somewhere in the psyche of our localization colleagues, the millions of them around the world, there was understood that translation will always be the same since the Babylon day till today, and will never change. But that's wrong, and things will change. Technology is enabling a whole bunch of different way of communicating. The human in the middle will always be needed. That's what I keep telling people. But the job will change. The job that you're doing right now will change. And so give me a little bit of idea. Give the audience a little bit of idea on locations, size, how many employees you have, etc.
Yeah. Deepdub is a relatively small company. Like I said, we're a young company also, definitely in this industry. We're right now based in, I would say, 3 locations in Israel and 2 locations in the United States. We're about 35 people in total. The company employs a lot of, we have a lot of freelancers and partners. We partner with companies in the localization industry, as well as companies that are outside. We do a lot of, in fact, even in our company, within the company, about half of our staff comes from the creative world. We have, dubbing directors, voice actors, people from post-production that have, decades of experience in post-production that are involved, that are part of the company, which really separates us from the traditional classic technology company, but also from the classic, localization company. We have a very prominent, team of researchers and developers that are really giving us the ability to bring those cutting-edge technologies. And that's why we call ourselves the combination of that creative and tech. We call ourselves a creative tech startup and not a tech company. We're not a classic tech company from that perspective.
Well, that's great. To be honest with you, one of the biggest things from a business perspective, we have to also, think about it, because people run businesses. You're not a charity organization. You put a business together for the sake of producing revenue, profit, serving customers, of course, and enabling all the other solutions but you obviously, any business who's in business, they're not in it for free. They're in it to make some sense in terms of financial sense for the stakeholders involved in the business. So what I like about the models that AI is presenting us right now, strictly speaking from a business perspective, is revenue per head count. The revenue per head count for us as a business, as an industry, with the utilization of technology, it's kind of have to be going up, because the moment you start, talking about few employees in a company versus thousands, then you start looking at, the revenue per head count is going up and makes more sense. And obviously, you guys are a private company, you're not listed on the stock exchange, etc. Hopefully one day you will be. But in that space, also there's an opportunity where, the valuation for a tech company is much higher than a service company. And because you are in that space where you're developing technology as a service, I think there is a bigger opportunity for you down the road. Can you comment on the business aspect of it?
Absolutely. When the company was established, one of the pain points that we identified is that the traditional businesses are built on a 10 to 15% margin. So by definition, it's a challenge. Businesses that operate on a 10-15% gross margin are service companies that are very hard to maintain. I mean, you're always jumping between profitability and loss. And that means that it's a very difficult business to sustain. And this is, for us, it's a challenge that we're happy to try and address and change the paradigm on that front as well.
But that's the creative thinking that you mentioned, since we started the conversation, the adaptability of technology, the tweaking of the process to make sure that the manual labor is removed and focusing on the creative work. You're adding value, and it's about value. This is where, everybody gets it wrong, is what is the value that you're bringing in to whoever, service, customer, market, etc. If you just want to do labor, well, that's a different story. But if you want to transform something, you have to focus on the value. And I think this is where you guys are focusing on that emotional, the emotional feature that you have in your dubbing. That's really stunning, in my opinion, because everybody thought AI is about logic, ones and zeros, right? So, and this is now you're injecting the emotional aspect of it. You're able to tailor it to mimic the human emotions as you go through a video, as you go through a content. This is incredible, in my opinion.
Yeah, I will extend what you said, and I will say, that generative AI in itself is, a lot of time being referred to as machine learning. Basically, the ability to take past information, or take information and build some processes, or defining a few steps forward based on what I learned. Generative AI is different. And I think that's a very important distinction, and this is where our voices are being generated from. Generative AI is a relatively new section of AI, or artificial intelligence, where machines are given a lot of data, or given enough data in order to be able to create something new that they don't necessarily learn previously. So it's almost a computer oriented imagination in a way. Obviously, it's not creativity. It cannot be compared to human creativity, but it is, I would almost call it, artificial creativity, artificial imagination that gives you a sense that, at least to us, it feels like this is, something new that I've never seen before. If you played with ChatGPT and you ask it a question, and suddenly it comes up with things that you didn't even ask it specifically, and that's where the creativity. Obviously, ChatGPT has seen it before, so it has that information, but you don't necessarily ask that directly. It created some inference to bring it in, and for us, this is where we're trying to do something very similar, but to voice, to be able to provide that type of emotion to voice.
Now, one of the things that, when we're dealing with content, and, we are a service industry, the second topic that everybody keeps talking about is data security, which is a big topic right now. Can you speak to that aspect? I know you deal with a lot of content that's publicly available, but in some cases the content is not publicly available and it needs some aspect of security. So, and I know you come from the tech industry, so that's not a foreign subject for you. So could you speak to the security aspect of things when it comes to data?
Absolutely. So going back to what I said earlier about the fact that, we started from addressing the needs of the Hollywood studios, type of quality and needs. And one of the things that was very, very clear to us is we need to address a lot of topics that are around, not only security, but definitely security of content. And in fact, earlier this year, we even announced that we are TPN approved. And for those who don't know, TPN is a trusted partner network. It's a certification that is supported by the Motion Picture Association. And pretty much what it says, and we're a Gold Shield worldwide certified, TPN certified, which pretty much says that they did the due diligence on our security methods, and we are approved to work with Hollywood studios on a pre-release theatrical material. Meaning, this is like, again, if you're coming from outside of the localization, this is like the highest level of security in the industry, because this is where the majority, if there is a project that is high caliber, high budget, these are the theatrical releases, and having access to a pre-release material requires all the security that's required. Now, you mentioned we come from tech, we're an Israeli company in origins, a lot of cyber, a lot of people even in our company have a lot of cyber in their background. We joke about the fact that, at least with one of the studios, when we wanted to pass security, it took us a week to answer all of the questions. And even one of the calls, one of the times it took us, a person from, our CTO basically went on a call with their information security person, and within half an hour they said, all right, you're approved. So,
that's kudos for you guys. That's great.
And that is true because, again, we really have a lot of background, a lot of knowledge about security. We appreciate and respect the fact that this is a clear need within the industry, especially to some of our customers, and we consider that from the ground up. When we build the service from ground up, this was one of the aspects we considered.
Excellent. Now let's move on a little bit to the future, and if you don't mind sharing with the audience, what's the vision for Deepdub as the time moves on, and what's your 6 months, a year, 5 year, if you have any. I don't think anybody has a 5-year vision, but what's your short-term vision when it comes to technology, taking the company to the next level? What's your goals? What's your objectives?
You remember when you said, the technology advances so fast, it used to be years, and now it's, I joke about it when someone tells me, hey, I don't know if I don't know if it's ready, but let's talk in 2 years. I'm like, man, this is changing on a quarterly basis. Like, right. You have a leap forward every quarter. So, 2 years from now, if you're not there, you're out of the game.
That's right. That's right. You're absolutely correct.
So, but yeah, listen, this could go in so many directions, and we see how one technology comes out and suddenly everything changes. If we were talking last October, AI was something that a lot of people talked about, and people didn't really understand. And there comes ChatGPT, and now everyone understands that that AI is here to stay. And I'm going to use another analogy that I heard last week about you remember this this thing called NFTs. NFT, it used to be something that was the buzzword. And there were a lot of conferences of believers that came in and said, oh, we believe that this is going to happen. We believe that this is going to be the future. I don't know. I don't hear a lot about it. I'm not saying it's not there. It's there, but I don't hear a lot about all of that. The difference with it is that with AI, you don't need conferences that talk about we believe in it, because it's not a matter of belief. It's it's already here. So going forward, and I will try to stick within my world, because there's a lot of things going on outside of it with AI, but especially with generative AI, we're going to see a lot of acceleration and quality coming into to serve specific needs. When I say, I think even 2 years ago, I said, I predicted that maybe in the future, I don't know when exactly, we will be able to watch let's say a sports broadcast, a live sports broadcast, where some of the commentators are going to be avatars that speak simultaneously in multiple languages. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. Think about, you and I conversing, and, I am the guest in the podcast. You could be entirely, an avatar of yourself. And we could have a very, generic discussion or a very specific discussion even. And that discussion could be almost simultaneously be dubbed or localized into multiple languages. If that's going to be good for theater, absolutely not. But is it going to be good enough? I think yes. I think it's going to be at some point good enough for audiences that really plug in and watch, a live broadcast in their language. So I think that's going to be a paradigm shift in the future that's going to happen towards more on-demand localization.
And so you bring a very good point, because the consumer of content now, it is generally not in theater. I mean, that's a small percentage, but the consumer of contents are on their telephones, on their tablets, on their computers, on mobile, in the subway, on a bus, it doesn't matter. The technology that we currently have in the 20th century have enabled us to consume content in a very, very speedy way, in a very fast way, and which also took that content and gave it a shelf life that is very short. The expiry date on content now has gone down. If you think about the 50s, when somebody picks up a newspaper that's a month old and they enjoy reading it because probably that's the newspaper that they have now. They haven't had a chance to buy a newspaper. I don't know. So that part of it, now we go from the physical world to readily available content, and this is what you guys are involved in making sure to facilitate that speedy transfer of content from one side to another. And for our audience who don't know what dubbing is, let me explain the classic way of doing dubbing. So the classic way of doing dubbing, you take a piece of content, which in this case happened to be a video, you have to transcribe that. So you got to get somebody to type it, and then you got to take that transcription and translate it to however many languages you intend on dubbing that video. Then you have to take the transcription and you have to, the translated content of that transcription, you got to give it to a studio, and that studio has to go through the process of selecting the talents based on the characters that you have in the video. They got to bring them to the studio. They have to record each and every one of those in different languages, and then the result audio files, they need to be overlaid on top of the video. So what Deepdub does, and the AI allowed us today to do, the generative AI allowed us to do, is to shorten that entire cycle into a couple of clicks and putting them into a platform that produces the better, maybe equal results, but it gives you immediate results in terms of transcribing, dubbing, listening to the video in a variety of languages, and it's not going to take you, that's another one too, because the classic way of doing dubbing, that used to take months. Now with this new way of doing dubbing, that is, we're talking about a few minutes maybe in some cases. Maybe it takes you a little longer, it depends on the complexity of your video, but if you have a simple video, I'm assuming you can upload it to your platform, Oz, and you get results pretty quickly. This is a very, very, very important, because now, if you're talking about entertainment, that's one thing. People probably can wait to see the next video. Maybe they can't because they're excited. They want to see Mission Impossible, the latest one, And so they're probably emotionally excited. They want to see it, but I want to listen to it in Indonesia in my own language. But if you are in a different industry, if you are in a defense and security, if you are in pharmaceutical, if you are in construction, if you are in health and safety, those becomes very important, because if you are trying to convey a message to a wide audience in a video format in languages that your audience don't understand, well, you're not gonna do well there. You got to make that message available in the languages. And I remember working with a few companies that they were in the oil. Now, I guess oil is a bad word on this channel, but I mentioned it for the sake of historical reference, nothing else. And that company was involved in the drilling, researching for oil. So they have staff all over the world, and those staff, they don't speak English. And so how do you explain health and safety measures to them? You have to explain it in their own language.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know that I always refer to content as trying to deliver something, and audiovisual content. And I would say the highest level of, if I need to classify it, I would say that you have two types of messages, or two types of things that I'm trying to deliver with an audiovisual content. Either I'm trying to deliver an experience, or I'm trying to deliver information. Experience, this is where we have television, theater, the cinema. We're trying to live. It's an experience. I'm not there to get educated. I'm not saying Mission Impossible for example, to get educated. I'm there to forget about everything else, immerse in the experience. I would pay money to sit in a nice theater, to see it on a big screen, and really be part of the amazing, car race. And I just watched it a couple of days ago. It's, I think, this is my favorite.
For me, the experience is the popcorn.
Absolutely. This is part of the experience, that you don't need also to clean everything after. I didn't say that, but really, this is part of the experience. This is an experience, immersive as much as possible, and enjoy that part. The other side, information. Experience is not relevant when I talk about security, just like you said. When I talk about a course, e-learning, corporate, a CEO trying to deliver a message, a company trying to deliver their, to promote their product. Experience may take some part. It needs to be a acceptable experience, but the information is more important. And being able to deliver it in the target languages, in the language of the target audience, is detrimental for your audience to understand and to receive that information.
Absolutely, and on that note, it's very exciting topic. Like, I can't talk enough about it. I've been an avid user of AI. I use it every day in my job, and if it's just me, the single person here that is from what I do, from my particular day-to-day work, has increased my productivity by, 75%, maybe 80%. It doubled my work output. And I'm assuming globally, that's going to help us quite a bit in terms of our content and how we work, and the amount of output we're producing collectively with lesser of an effort. And that's how we started the conversation. And I love to finish on that same thought. You can do more with less. Not in terms of number of people, but in terms of resources as a humanity, as a planet. So consumption, the amount of human we need, the amount of opportunities it creates, it's all positive. And we should not be afraid, I'm speaking to the legacy part of our industry. We should not be afraid of embracing that whole idea of employing and using AI. And it's available to everybody. It's not exclusive. The platforms are all open source. People can go and explore them, see how they fit in the world, depending on what your job and what your objective in life. You can use it in a variety of ways. So it's an opportunity. It's not a risk, in my opinion. So on that one,
well, maybe and add to it, creativity is still going to be a part where humans are going to take the lead role. And it's just going to change, the places where we add our creativity on, it's just going to shift, along those lines.
Correct. So just before we wrap it up here, if you don't mind, Oz, any final thoughts, words to the audience about the company? What would you like them to know? How can they reach you? How can they reach the company if they're interested, etc.
Well, first of all, again, I will say thank you for inviting me here. I really enjoyed the time. Deepdub is really on a path to democratize content. We would like to provide people the ability to express themselves to multiple audiences around the world in their own languages. And the ability to access those type of services in a way that that was never done before, in a simple and easy manner. If you'd like to try the platform, you're more than welcome to go on our website. We have a menu button called Deepdub Go. There's actually a button on the first page. You can join the waitlist. Right now, there's a waitlist, but join the waitlist. You'll get access to a platform that will allow you to localize your content on your own with a few clicks of a button, and I'm sure you're going to be amazed just playing with it. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to me directly. You can find me on LinkedIn with my name, Oz Krakowski, or reach out to my email. You can email me directly or send an email to the company info@deepdub.ai.
Well, I want to thank you, Oz, for joining me today. It was such an exciting conversation, to be honest with you. This is where I get, excited about this conversation because that's how I started my career in the tech business. And I really enjoyed our conversation today. You're welcome back to this channel anytime you feel like coming back. And I also want to put a plug here for Ali Alexandra, who connected us together. And thank you, Ali, for bringing us, Oz and myself, to have this lovely conversation this morning. Thanks again, and you're welcome back anytime you need to come back to this channel. So before I wrap it up, I want to thank the audience for listening in on this episode today. I hope everybody got something out of this, and I hope everybody develops some positive ideas for the future using generative AI and how can it be a business enabler for you. Also, I ask everybody who is enjoying our content to like, subscribe to our channels. I really appreciate your support, and thank you again, and enjoy your weekend.